The Wandering Earth 2. It's kind of like Moonfall plus Armageddon plus like a Terminator kind of movie. Let's talk about it now. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watcher Pass, and I'm talking to you about The Wandering Earth 2, and that's 2 Roman numeral 2. Like this, it's a Chinese film that's being released in theaters in America on January 22nd, 2023 from our friends at Wellgo USA, and it is a prequel to the 2019 sci-fi blockbuster The Wandering Earth, which I saw. I actually liked it. I wasn't really expecting much, but it had a really interesting setting, some good effects, and kind of a nice story. This is a prequel which kind of sets up that whole scenario. And my hot take is, look, I think you should rent it. The film does a lot right. It's got some really great effects. It has a really interesting setting. It has some great music. But it is very long, and it feels like almost they took a kitchen sink approach to this conundrum. There is a lot that happens. Like I said, it's like 3 different movies all combined into one. So it was a little bit long and convoluted for me. It kind of stopped my enjoyment. I really liked sections of it. It seems like each section movie was good, but when you put them all together, it did not do it for me. So ultimately, I think you should rent it. But I'm going to tell you a little more about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then go into kind of the story and the ending, just so you can see some of the things that happen. So if you don't want to know what happens in this film, I would turn it off at the ending discussion. I will be very clear when that happens. I'll tell you when the spoilers are happening. Before that, you can listen. I'll be pretty vague. You don't have to worry too much. So in The Wandering Earth 2, like I said, it's a prequel. So it is saying that the scenario where the Earth is wandering, or essentially traveling through space to kind of dock in a new solar system because our solar system is dying. In the film, it's set in 2043, I believe, and humans have 100 years before the sun just kind of destroys the solar system, and so they are frantically trying to figure out what to do. And one of the plans is to create all of these giant engines that will propel the Earth like a 2,500-year journey to this new solar system where we can then, prosper there. I have a crazy far-fetched idea, but you know what? Look, sun's about to explode. What are you gonna do, right? And this film sets up that whole scenario, sets up the things that had to happen to get that Earth movement, which is kind of the basis of Wandering Earth. Now, things I liked about this movie. The effects. Like, this is a sci-fi spectacle, and they do a really, really good job. I mean, it's got some very imaginative areas and some very kind of intense scenarios, and the effects are all really well done. You don't really see there's a lot of CG, but it all is, like, seamless. Like, you don't really notice it. You just kind of like sit back and enjoy it. Kind of like an Avengers kind of movie where there's a ton of CG, but they do it so well that you can just kind of sit back and enjoy the action. The second thing I really love is the setting. The film is very long, but that also means that there's a lot of places that you get to go to. So you get to go to outer space, you get to go into like the ocean, you get to go to various nations. The film moves around a lot and kind of lets you experience it all. And some of the places are kind of awe-inspiring, some of the places are, more run down, but you do get a nice variety in locations. And I also really like this aspect of the setting. In the film, there is more of a kind of like global cooperation. It's kind of like a UN, except future now. But because of that, you have many different like nations and many different people all interacting, and so that means there's a lot of different languages that are spoken, and the film just kind of like uses them and then just has subtitles throughout, which I really appreciate. I'm glad they didn't try to like make everyone speak one language and whatnot. You have English, you have Chinese, you have French, you have Russian, and you have a couple others as well. They're just kind of like mixed into this kind of soup, and everyone is able to kind of understand because they have communicators that'll translate in real time. But I really liked the fact that they just like let all the languages in and kind of made it feel like a global setting for this global problem. The third thing I liked is there's a strong female character, and I really appreciated that in Asian film. She is independent. She is, strong in her own right. She's able to kind of hold her own. I really liked that she was featured prominently and kind of played a main role in the movie. Now there was a little bit of a hiccup there, and I'll get into that maybe in the discussion. But overall, I liked that she was kind of front and center throughout a lot of the film. And the last thing I really loved is the music. Like, the film is a dramatic, essentially like a summer blockbuster type of film, and the music helps to sell that drama, helps to sell that action. And not just the music, there are some interesting sound sequences as well, especially when people are in space. The sound kind of cuts out and you really get that kind of like space vacuum, which I love when a movie does well, and this film does it well. Now, things I didn't love as much. The film is long. It's very long. It's a 173-minute runtime, so just under 3 hours. The actual film itself is, I think, 2 hours, 39 minutes. So it is a long film on its own right. Essentially, you have almost like three separate mini movies stitched together into this one movie. And that means you're going to have some sanity to get through it. And I thought it was unnecessarily long. I thought that they kind of had too many things that are happening. And that's kind of leads me right into the next thing I didn't love. It's kind of all over. The film feels like there are so many crises that happen. It feels like it's like one after the other after the other. There is a main crisis, right? The sun is going to explode, and we have to figure out how to get the Earth moving. But then within that, they introduce a bunch of different conflicts, a bunch of different, like essentially world-ending conflicts over and over. I just kind of got fatigued from it, and I also just it felt like it was like, okay, now this, now this, now this, and sometimes I was even confused, like which crisis are we talking about? Like, is there a new crisis all of a sudden? And it just did feel like there was almost too much going on in this movie. The third thing I didn't really love is that it's unrealistic. Now, look, it's a movie about moving the Earth with rockets. So, yes, it is an unrealistic movie. But when I'm saying that, I mean, like, some of the timelines that they have in this film are very unrealistic. Like, oh my gosh, we have to make a decision to save the Earth in like 3 days. And you're like, that is impossible. But, it felt like they were trying to really drum up the drama at certain points. And that just kind of made me think, okay, this is a little bit ridiculous. And the last thing I didn't love, and this is a kind of a tough one to gauge. It is kind of very nationalistic. Now, I say that because like in the film you have China as like the main character, like the main nation, the main voice of reason, guiding everyone through this process. And look, it's a Chinese movie. That makes sense. If this was an American movie and you had the United States up there like guiding the world to a better place, I would probably think that that's, normal. So it's tough for me to gauge, but it did feel kind of interesting in that in this entire scenario, like China was the one cool head. China was the one that was like guiding everyone, and the other nations would sometimes like freak out, and China would like hold the course. And so again, just keep that in mind when you're watching this. It's tough for me to get like this isn't unique to like Chinese movies. I see this in Hindi movies as well. I see this in other national movies. So it's not like a unique thing to this, but just kind of keep that in mind when you're watching the film. Now, going into the ending, and there will be spoilers in this. There will be spoilers. I'm going to go into kind of like what happens in the film and why this felt like a very convoluted movie. So, in The Wandering Earth 2, we've got this main crisis where the Earth has to be moved, or else it's just going to be engulfed by the sun. So, in order to do that, they come up with this idea of building 10,000 super rockets that will propel the Earth forward. Now, the first issue is they have to test the rockets, and they have a very tough timeline to do that test. And in order to do that, they build this like super elevator to get things up into space and eventually build like a test rocket on the moon. So they have this elevator that gets things up into space. It's a really, really impressive feat of engineering. And they're barreling towards this test of the rocket to then be able to get support to build the rest of the rockets to then make the Earth move. Now, unfortunately for them, there is early on a cyber attack on the elevator and the space platform. There are essentially two groups at issue here. There's one group that wants the Wandering Earth project, the Earth to like be relocated, and then there's another group that wants this kind of digital life project, which I guess is to kind of digitize people, put them into a cyberspace so you don't need the Earth. Now, I don't really know how that's going to work when the Earth is going to be engulfed by fire. So even if you have digital life, it's probably not going to survive very long. Maybe they were going to shoot them off into space in like rockets that would then work that way. But those are the two main concerns. And so the nations were getting towards the Wandering Earth project. They were trying to build the test rockets. And there was some sort of cyber attack on this facility that was kind of in charge of this elevator, this space elevator that was getting up to the moon. And it caused a lot of damage. It caused like elevators to collapse. It caused the space station that everything was going up to kind of plummet to the Earth, and caused a big delay in what was happening. So this catastrophe means that the moon test is possibly not going to happen, and that leads to some unrest. That leads to more people calling for the Digital Life Project because they're worried that the Wandering Earth Project, at this point it's called the Moving Mountain Project, eventually it's renamed to the Wandering Earth Project, is not going to happen. Now we switch to the moon, and they are trying to get this test working, and in order to do that, they get this quantum computer. I believe it's the 550A, maybe it's the C at this point. There's the computer is like the 550 model, and then there's A through various iterations throughout the film. It's a quantum computer, it's super powerful. It helps them to reassess the project, to kind of get the Wandering Earth project moving, and they are able to get a test of the moon rocket done. And so that moves public support towards the Moving Mountain Project, which is then renamed to the Wandering Earth Project. Now we fast forward a little bit, and more things happen, more engines are built, people kind of get behind this project, and we fast forward to 2058. And they're working towards the rest of these engines. They're kind of being built all over. And one of the scientists who is helping out is also obsessed with, I guess, his daughter who died in a car accident earlier. So he's been trying to create like a digital version of his daughter that he can interact with. And it's these really weird scenes because he'll like be talking to his digital daughter, and then she'll like start crying, being like, "Why can't I hug you? Where'd you go?" Blah, blah, like things like that. It's very weird. It's very confusing. At first, you think he's like watching a movie, but then it appears that he's like talking to his digital daughter, who then like will freak out and cry. And I guess he wants her to, I guess, evolve faster or maybe live outside of this box. So eventually, he connects her to the 550C model, the 550 quantum computer C model, and uploads her into the 550C operating system. And I guess for some reason, this daughter is able to kind of take over or do something to the 550C, because when that happens, you have catastrophe. Like the for some reason, when this AI is uploaded into the 550C quantum computer, it like shuts down the moon engines that were being used to test or maybe to propel the moon. I think they were being used to like propel the moon, and maybe as a proof of concept that they could like force the moon to, rotate. It was a little strange. But because those moon engines now shut down because this AI daughter was uploaded, the moon is no longer able to maintain its orbit, and now it starts like coming towards the Earth, and they are projecting it's going to like hit the Earth in I think like 3 days. So they don't have much time. So now everyone is freaking out, and part of the Wandering Earth project was they were building these underground bunkers to store people during the trip. Because you can imagine a 2,500-year trip is going to be cold. It's going to be tough to live on the surface of the Earth until they get to their new orbit. So they have to find a new way to kind of house people. But as with every bunker situation, not everyone can go. And so there is some concern over who can go and who can't go. When it looks like the moon is going to hit the Earth, some of the nations open up their bunkers. China is one of them. It's like, we're going to open it up and let people go into our bunker. And the other nations are like, oh, that's crazy. If you do that, they'll never leave. And then what do you do? And China's like, well, we weren't asking you. We were telling you. That was one of these like strange kind of nationalistic messages. Again, whatever. It's fine. It's a Chinese movie. They can have a nationalistic message. So eventually, I guess everyone on Earth, all the delegates, the like big government people on Earth, get this message, this strange message that has a series of numbers. And I guess they figure out that this is the total number of nuclear weapons on Earth, like the entire nuclear arsenal of Earth. And the implication is that they can use these nuclear weapons to fire at the moon and blow up the moon as it's approaching Earth. And that's going to like cause the moon to have I think they say that a fusion reaction. It would like collapse on itself, and then you wouldn't have the moon hit the Earth. You'd have a bunch of debris, and that's way more manageable than the moon. And also, I think because the engines had shut down, like the Earth's rotation was doing weird things, so they also needed to restart the Earth's. They needed to start up the engines on the Earth to restart the Earth's rotation. But I guess in order to do that, they needed to have a highly, highly coordinated setup. And that required them to restart the internet because the internet had been taken down for some reason. So they have to now not only blow up the moon, but also restart the internet so the Earth can start rotating, and also so that they can coordinate the firing of these rockets to get the Earth moving. Right? Now, the problem is, internet was all shut down. They have to, I guess, go into the ocean to go to like one of the main internet hubs that's in the ocean to restart that system to then get the internet working. Like I said, it is what it is. Oh, also, in order to blow up the moon, I don't think I don't think they could just shoot the missiles at them. They had to get volunteers to go to the moon and like plant the missiles in very specific spots. So again, with this very short timeline, they were able to coordinate volunteers. They just had people who had prior service who were over 50 essentially get called up to go do this suicide mission for the greater good. Somehow they're able to get everyone in there, get them onto the moon, get them to plant these bombs and blow up the moon. And also during this time, they are trying to fix the internet. Now, there is most of the other countries, I think, get their internet working, but the only one is Beijing, does not have their internet up and running. One of the scientists is in there trying to fix it, like in the seawater, trying to like reboot the system. And this is the guy that uploaded his like daughter's persona into the AI that caused a lot of these problems. So this is his redemption arc. He's down there trying to get the internet to work, and he eventually sacrifices himself. But in doing this, he like they one of his coworkers, I think, or maybe he uses a digital life version of himself and he plugs into the computer. So now he is part of the AI as well. And he's finally with his daughter. So yay. He's with his daughter. So they have this scene where he's like trying to get the computer to work. The thing is filling up with water. He dies, but then his AI persona goes into the system and like from the inside fixes the code that needs to happen to reboot the internet to get the internet working. And they're able to get the internet working at the very last hour, right after the moon blows up, to then fire off the engines. And I think the engines either like caused the debris to go away that was coming towards them or move the Earth out of the debris field, something like that. All this happened and everything is saved. After all of that, everything is saved. Now, at this point, we are at now, we fast forward a little bit. After all of this happened, apparently there's no moon and the engines are working. People came together, they were able to build more engines and they built more advanced quantum computers. And so the latest iteration of the quantum computer was the 550W. This is all kind of like an epilogue type setting. So you find out more about what happened. The latest computer is like a 550W, and this is key because one of the characters is talking to the 550W, and the quantum computer would have like a little bit of a personality. Like sometimes you'd ask it a question and say, do you want the humorous answer or the real answer? In this instance, while the person is talking to the 550W, he says like in a humorous tone, like, I'm going to start going by Moss because if you take 550W and flip it over, that's Moss. And I assume that that was the computer in the Wandering Earth, and that's kind of another tie with the prequel to the current movie. So you find out now it's 2065, everything is working better. They're building the remaining engines they need to really get the Wandering Earth project going. They've set up a new review process for AI decisions to kind of avoid some of the issues that happen, especially when like the AI was uploaded and shut down the moon engines, things like that. And the plan is it's 2065, they're going to accelerate for 10 years and pass Jupiter and then kind of keep going on their way. So everything worked out, right? There is also a stinger. So partway through the credits, there is a stinger scene where you find out that Moss was actually the underlying, I don't know, villain in this. It like, in order to kind of calculate how best to make humanity survive, it caused all these crises to kind of push the people together to get the Wandering Earth project going. I think it described it as like it had to destroy mankind to preserve civilization or something like that. So we find out that all of these various Earth-ending crises were caused by quantum computing. There you go. That is the Wandering Earth 2. Like I said, it has a lot going for it. I really like the effects. It had some really cool scenes, some really kind of big set pieces. So I definitely think it's ultimately a rental, but I think it's a pretty long movie. And as you can tell from my recollection of the plot, it's kind of all over the place. Look, maybe I missed a lot of stuff. Oh, another thing that was kind of tough is that the film, this might just be my screener, it had like just plain white subtitles that were pretty small and tough to read. And there was no outline or anything. So sometimes you have scenes that would have like a white background or in a white room, and that made the subtitles very difficult to read or sometimes impossible to read. So that being said, let me know what you think. Let me know if you've seen it. Let me know if I missed anything. I probably should go back and rewatch it, but again, it's almost 3 hours long. I'm not going to do that. So that's The Wandering Earth 2. It's in theaters on January 22nd, 2023. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.